everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of our t-shirt block series. Today we're going to be focusing on how to create a short sleeve t-shirt block for our men's fitted t-shirt. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is have your bodice block ready that we prepared last time, and we're actually going to use this exact same file and create a new draft block. So here I'm going to call this pattern piece 2. You can rename it sleeve if you like and just hit OK. And what this does when we zoom out is it actually gives us a new base starting point. So this is the base starting point I've got, and I'm actually just going to move this over a little bit so we're not, working on top of our t-shirt pattern piece. So starting with our point B, what I'm going to do is create a vertical point downwards, and starting with our point at a distance, click that, and you're going to hold Shift and click like we did last time. And this length here is actually going to be half of our measurement of our armhole depth plus 1 centimeter. So going into our formulas, let's write that in. So our armhole depth is really just this length over here. I'm going to double click that, add the 1 centimeter on, and divide all of that by 2. And I'm going to hit OK. Now again, you're going to change the line types if you want to. For me, it just helps understand which one are the drafting points and which one is going to be included in our final pattern piece. Now from here, I'm also going to create another point downwards, starting at point B, holding down the Shift key, and this point is actually going to be our sleeve length. So for me, I've actually created the sleeve length as a custom measurement of 30 centimeters. Depending on how long or short you want your sleeve, feel free to change this around. Again, hit OK, and apply all your changes. Now, once this is done, the next measurement is actually going to be a diagonal measurement from point B. And this particular measurement is going to be sourced from our first pattern piece. So what you're going to want to do is actually create a line using your line tool from point 11 to point 12 on your t-shirt. And this diagonal distance is the measurement that you're actually interested in. So if I click at point 15, which is where that measurement ends, I can see that 22.957 is the measurement that I'm looking at. All right, so that's how long I want this diagonal point to be while it sits on the perpendicular line from B1. So let's hop over to our pattern piece 2. Now, the easiest way, unfortunately, to solve this is actually just to do a little bit of maths. Because we don't have that many reference points, I need to know how long this line needs to be to come all the way out to point B3. So the next part is actually going to require a little bit of maths. So let's bring up a calculator, and I'll put a little diagram up on the screen as well in terms of what we're trying to calculate. So this diagonal measurement that we need to get is going to be the measurement of 22.957 centimeters plus 2.5 centimeters. All right, so that's the ease that I've added on just to ensure that you get a good fit around your bicep area. So this value here, we do need to square it. Looking at our Pythagoras' theorem, it's going to be the longer side squared minus the other shorter side squared, and all of that is going to give you a square root for the bottom value. So if I square that, and I'm going to store that particular value, and now I'm also going to get the distance from point B to B1. So clicking on our diagram over here, I can see that is 12.7 centimeters. So 12.7 centimeters squared is going to give us this value here. So what you're going to want to do now is your large value minus your smaller value. All right, so my large value minus 161.29. That's given me that. You can store it if you want, again, not necessary. And all of that is going to be a square root. So 22.063, rounding that up to 3 decimal places, is what I'm going to need as my value from point B1 all the way out horizontally to B3. So let's create that. So that is 22.06. So once we have that available, what I'm going to do is actually solidify that diagonal line across so we can work with it a little bit more. Again, creating that line tool. Now the next thing that you're going to want to do is actually square down from point B3 all the way to B2 and create your new point, which is going to be a perpendicular intersection of both of those values. So this point here and this point here is going to create a new point. So the next thing that we need to do is on this line from B3 all the way up to point B, we actually need to get a point on this particular line, which is 1/3 of the overall measurement. All right, I know that the original measurement of this diagonal line was stored here as 25.457. All right, so I can take this number and divide that by 3. Whether you want to do it in Seamly or you want to do it in the calculator is entirely up to you. I'm just going to put it in the calculator given that I've got that value stored over there. And the value that I'm going to put into Seamly, as you can see on my screen, is 8.485. Now, again, remember to round this off. So I'm going to use 8.486 as my indicator value. All right. So going over to our Seamly, I'm going to use this point along a distance. So my first value, my second value, and this length is going to be 8.486. Once you apply that, you can see it's put that new point in there, and we can hit OK. Now your next value is going to be halfway across this line. So I can actually just get the midpoint of this distance and hit apply. The reason I created this is just as a little bit of a curve guidance point. So it's not really going to be used in our overall measurements, but it is going to help us where to guide that nice bell-shaped curve that we're going to use for our sleeve. So I'm going to create a point that is perpendicular, and this length needs to be 0.75 centimeters. So if you hit apply, you'll see you get that really small point, and if I just move it across, that's the point that we're going to use as a guidance. So your sleeve shape generally goes downwards up until point B5, and then it's going to come upwards for that bell shape. So I'm going to do a similar thing as well for the midpoint distance between B5 and point B. Hit OK. And this point needs to come up by 2 centimeters. So here, I've connected that, and I'm going to hit 2 centimeters and hit OK. Again, these two are guiding points, and they can be removed once your curve is finished. So let's use our spleen. So to create our short sleeve measurement, I actually need to create a point between B4 and B2. Now the easiest way to do this is actually just going to be to create a point along a distance, and I can use that line tool there. So the length from point B4 needs to be exactly 4 centimeters for a short sleeve. So once you've got point 10, what you're going to want to do is actually create a curve from point 10 all the way up to point 3. So you can hold that piece down, make your curve like so. And again, remember, you can make any adjustments after you have clicked enter on your piece. Now the last step here is going to be just to join all of our points in with the line tool. So from point 10 to 2 and all the way up from point 2 to our base point. So speaking of pattern pieces, what you're going to want to do is go into piece and add a new pattern piece. So here I'm going to start on the curves. And this is all correct, so the status is ready to go, and you can click OK. Once we go over to the piece, you can see that sleeve piece has been added in. Similar to before, you can export the pieces as you like, or you can go into layout and print them out as needed. If you do want, you can add seam allowances in by right-clicking and going into options, select seam allowance, and if you click seam allowance, you can actually select what type of seam allowance you want. So if I apply that, you can see that's there. Now for all of the pattern pieces that we're creating today, seam allowances are already included, so we don't actually need to include them. All right. You can add an internal path if you like, or you can add built-in seam allowances. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If you do want a clearer tutorial on a longer sleeve and how to do that, let me know, and that's something that we can tackle. Otherwise, there is a free PDF to download in the description. Thanks, and I'll see you guys next time.